The market's changing, obviously interest rates are potentially coming down this year. What advice would you give them from your point of view, if you were to give them any?
I think where I see people make mistakes is when they don't actually do their own research.
What are some misconceptions that people see in their selling journey? Like, where do you think people go wrong?
It is a very simple process if you keep to the fundamental and the important parts and you don't let emotion.
Why would anyone select Jealous Craig over someone else?
Being the biggest doesn't necessarily make you the best. And what Jealous Craig has been fundamentally committed to since its inception is running a business that puts its clients and people first, but then builds an infrastructure around.
I'm Yash, and this is Tomorrow Defined, the podcast that takes you inside the real world of buying and selling property. As a real estate agent at Jealous Craig, I've helped hundreds of families sell their most prized asset with confidence, clarity, and strong results. And you don't need to be in the inner north of Melbourne to get value out of these episodes. The strategies, behind the scenes looks, and value I provide in these episodes will help you make smarter property decisions wherever you are. Andy, thank you for joining us on another episode on Tomorrow Defined podcast. We like to focus on a lot of homeowners and sellers that potentially are selling now or in the future. And obviously with your experience being 27, 28 years now in the industry, it's very much a privilege to have you on the show. So thank you. I've been looking forward to interviewing you for a very long time. I do respect your opinion in the marketplace, and obviously you've got a lot of experience in real estate as well. Let me ask you a question to start things off. Obviously, if any homeowners are here on the episode now, listening in and tuning into your opinions, what advice would you give them if they're thinking of maybe selling now or in the future? The market's changing, obviously interest rates are potentially coming down this year. What advice would you give them from your point of view, if you were to give them any?
Yeah, good. Well, firstly, thanks for having me, Yash. It's great to be here, and congratulations to you for, I think, putting the content together. I think it's really important that people consider how they can communicate effectively with their customer base. So this is a great modern way of providing people with really strong advice. So well done. I think to your first question, I mean, look, I have been around the real estate industry for now a long time. I still think I'm a young professional, but I've earned a lot of experience through 27, 28 years in the industry. The one thing that hasn't changed in that time, and lots of things do change, whether it's technology, whether it's the way that we communicate, whether it's the speed of transactions, but the thing that hasn't changed from an owner's point of view around considering the sale process is getting informed. Now, I think where I see people make mistakes is when they don't actually do their own research and they don't think enough about the questions that they should be asking of a real estate professional, or they don't look to the success of others. You know, I think success leaves clues. So I think that if you were looking to sell, the first and most important part is that you start monitoring the market for yourself. I think your own informed views are really important. And then, clearly you should talk to an agent from Jealous Craig, But I say that hand on heart. I say that because we are a great firm with great people who have great values and will do great work for their customers. But in most cases, we do have a very prominent position in the markets that we operate from. So we come from a position of knowledge. And knowledge is power when it comes to making good strategic decisions around the sale process.
Absolutely. And without a doubt, I think the brand and the people, I think you're very much focused on the people. And you say that all the time in your interviews. I hear that all the time. It's the people that represent the brand. The brand's nothing without the people. So I do think we have good people here and people that have a grand knowledge of the marketplace, like you mentioned, a lot of experience behind them. That's very much important. What are some misconceptions that people see in their selling journey? Like, where do you think people go wrong? If you were to look at some of your past experiences selling properties when you were on the tools, where could you have maybe gone better as an agent? Or if you just wish that vendor maybe listened to some of your advice for some reason, where do you see those misconceptions or wrongdoings happening in the marketplace?
I've lived through the industry since I was a 19-year-old. So, experience comes with time, and it also comes from learning. And sometimes there are mistakes along the way. I think that what's underestimated for agents and clients is how emotional the selling process can be. And I think that with the emotion, agents can sometimes misread how important a transaction is for an owner, and they can rush through the process. So I think from an agent's point of view, the best ones understand how to navigate how the vendor might well be feeling and be attuned to those emotions so that we're not putting them in a situation of being rushed to make a decision or feeling uncomfortable at any given stage. But I think owners often can also get too emotionally driven and they haven't considered the logical aspects around what a sales process is. And selling a property is a very simple process if you keep to the fundamental and the important parts and you don't let emotion or some of the things that can come along around ambition or sometimes greed. I mean, everyone wants the best outcome, and some people can be blinded by, some irrational thinking. And the hardest part from an agent's point of view is to navigate logic when there is emotion involved in a transaction, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's very hard to take emotion out of a homeowner that's been there for 20, 30 years as well, from our point of view, and of course from your point of view as well. If you were to look back on how important pre-marketing is and how important preparing a home is, what would you recommend for, just say, a standard 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom weatherboard home in the area? What are people looking for in the marketplace at the moment? Are they looking for renovated homes that are completely done? Are they looking for turnkey? Are they looking for maybe properties that can be renovated, that can put their own spice into things? What are your thoughts on that at the moment?
I think that because of the cost to construct and the time and effort that's involved in renovating, that has been something that I've noticed has changed in my time in the industry. There was a period of time when, with shows that were developed like The Block and all those renovation shows and interior shows on television, that everyone became an interior decorator overnight, and they wanted to put their own touch on things. And for a period, that was really enjoyable and fun to be a part of if you were the consumer. But because of, I suppose, the reality of building costs, the reality of time with planning, I think it has turned to the point where people prefer and tend to pay more for a fully renovated home. But the market's governed by price, right? So if you can't afford the fully renovated and you want to get into the market, I still think buying a good asset that is an asset you can live in and improve is a really good strategy from a property point of view. But I think what buyers look for first and foremost is they do want to buy something that they perceive to be good value, and then they need to feel certain that it's in a location and it's going to provide them some upside around lifestyle. And if you can get those things combined, then you tend to find that you've got a marketable asset. I think if you're the vendor that's considering what do I need to deliver, if you haven't got a renovated home, I don't think you should renovate it to sell. I think you should sell it in its format, because what you do to sell might not be what the market necessarily aspires for. And what you have to spend might not necessarily recover you, because it is expensive to do that. So I think you've got to give yourself the best position and take good advice from the agents around where are the biggest pools of buyers for the property and how can you present it to make sure that it does appeal to the broadest audience of potential customers.
Well said, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself, that's for sure. I think that's very true in this market, especially maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago before COVID, that might have been different, but definitely shifted since then. When you're then progressing on to going back to your previous point about selecting a Jealous Craig agent, hopefully, but selecting agents to choose from, what do you think is the most important thing for vendors or potential vendors to look for in an agent?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it's one that not enough people think about, to be honest with you, because they think that I'll just get 3 proposals and then I'll measure the agent on cost and how I feel about them. And for people that you're meeting for the first time, you don't know them. So you don't know fundamentally what their values are and what their motivations are in terms of how they're going to handle you in the transaction. So I do believe that the best agents and the best decisions should be built on trust. So I think you do have to have a connection where you feel like the agent that you're going to work with is listening and attentive to what it is that you're hoping to achieve, and that you can trust that they'll navigate the steps of your campaign to give you the best possible out for the sale. But then I think that what you really should be looking into is the fact-based, evidence-based work that they're doing around the strategy. So you want to feel comfortable that the agent has sold similar properties to your own, ideally. And if they have, and they've done that well, then success leaves clues. There should be some outcomes of the success of each of those campaigns that can translate to your own. I think that you certainly want to talk to an agent that understands how to measure price factually. And one thing in our industry that is often misunderstood is that we're not valuers, but we are attuned to what's selling in the market and how buyers are responding to property. So my opinion of the value of a home versus yours, Yash, they could be different from a personal opinion point of view, but the evidence doesn't lie. And if there are 4 examples of homes in the area that have sold for between 1 and 1.2 that give you the goalposts, then you've got to really look into that as the owner, rather than get led or misled by someone who's trying to tell you that your home could be worth more without demonstrating or showing you the comparable price points. They're the things that I think are absolutely most important. So there's a point to getting price right, because you only get one chance to sell. And I think that's an important consideration for the agent and the vendor. We've got to make sure this is the best possible outcome first time out. And then the second part is, if you get price wrong, you do misalign the market and it's very hard to recover. And again, if you've got a trustworthy agent and someone who's professional, has experience, then those things should go hand in hand.
Absolutely. And those things obviously have to be spoken about prior to going online. A lot of the time, the conversation is when you're halfway through the campaign. And yes, sometimes vendors may get estimates wrong. But what's your opinion on changing strategy halfway through the campaign? How do you go about that?
Well, honesty is the best policy for everything. So I think that I've sold hundreds and hundreds of homes, apartments, small, large, personal properties. The strategy never changes. If the market aren't reacting the way that you hoped or expected them to, then you need to be able to have a conversation around what can we do to change things here. Now, it's not always price, but sometimes it is that you've misaligned price versus what's competing in the market, and you need to have a good assessment of what other homes are on the market that look the same and how the buyer's judging yours in comparison. It might be marketing, it might be that you need to look at photography or interior decoration and any adjustments that can be made. But I think that the longer that you delay activity, the harder it is to recover. So, and this is where, again, experience comes into it. The best agents will have a conversation with an owner about how to adjust because it's in their best interest. It's in the owner's best interest to have that adjustment. The worst agents will be dictated to by the client. And it's not to say that the client shouldn't be in control of the decisions that are made through the course of the process, but the agent is the professional who has the most experience. So the best agents should be leading their customers to make the best decisions possible for them to achieve the best possible outcome at the end of the selling exercise.
Just quickly, guys, if you're a young family looking to upsize, or you're someone that wants to make a move with your property journey and you're feeling overwhelmed with where to start, feel free to use the link below to book a call with myself and my team. We'd be more than happy to help with a tailored strategy for your specific situation so you have the confidence to make the move. Whether you're looking at doing it now, whether you're looking at doing it down the line, we can definitely assist with any goals you may have. Now back to the episode. Going back to what you were saying before regarding selecting an agent and the brand and everything like that and what it represents, but more importantly, why should a vendor care about that? I think you're going back to an agent that overpromises, underdelivers. That happens all the time in any marketplace, I think. But why would anyone select Jealous Craig over someone else? Maybe talk on, and you're probably the best person to talk to about this, about behind the scenes and what's happening there on a tech standpoint, how we can be as transparent to our vendors as possible as well through some platforms. Why should Jealous Craig be in the running?
Yep. Well, I hope I can answer that question well. I'd be in strife if I can't. Look, Jealous Craig as an organisation it is the largest independent real estate organisation in Victoria now. And that success, I think, is being the biggest doesn't necessarily make you the best. But if you are at scale, then you should have enough tools and resources to add value for your customers. And what Jealous Craig has been fundamentally committed to since its inception is running a business that puts its clients and people first, but then builds an infrastructure around that organisation to give everyone the best opportunity to maximise on their selling process. So we work really hard with people like yourself to make sure that you're trained and skilled in markets and that you're in an environment where you're seeing a lot of properties transacting, so you're up to speed with what's happening. So our market share and our ability to be involved in lots of transactions, what that does for us is brings us a huge pool of buyers. And as important as the vendor is in the sales process, the most important people are actually the buyers. So we can get to the most amount of buyers. We have the largest independent database, but then we're very targeted in the way that we get to those buyers through the technology platforms, through our e-communications, through our open database and our ability to have one client with one profile. So there's lots of nuances that fit within that part. But I think, again, fundamentally, we're an organisation that believes in repeat and referral customers is what develops growth. So if our customers aren't satisfied at the end of the exercise that they have with you or one of your colleagues, then our business is failing. So we believe in pushing all of our people to represent our brand and the process in the best possible light, with the best possible advice, with the best possible platform for success. And something that I've always believed in and I believe in leading our organisation is that the more information and the more knowledge that you can provide the agent and the vendor client, the better everyone is armed to make the best possible decision. So yourself, we developed our Jealous Craig Live platform last year, which is, it's an industry first. It's the first time that an owner can look at the pure performance of their sales campaign online. They can sit out the side, their own open for inspection, and see how many people are coming in. I mean, I think it's an absolute game changer. But what that does for the owner is that it gives them pure visibility around the performance, and they're not relying on the agent to either manipulate that information or to report it third hand. They're seeing it firsthand, and they can collaborate with the agent around, okay, well, what's the outcome of today? Have we learned that the market's responding well to the home or not? Talk to me about the comments that are being made on this register. How do I compare with the data that we're collecting from realestate.com or domain.com or our own website around performance? And if we're not measuring up, then we can make some adjustments. But at the same time, if we're on track, which you'd hope that you would be more often than not, then the vendor gets that confidence that everyone at Jealous Craig is pushing them in the right direction to give them the best possible chance to sell.
Absolutely. And some feedback that I've had on Jealous Craig Live in the short span that we've had it, it's been incredible. Most vendors, they absolutely love how transparent it is, and they love that they can just look at it on a cafe at an open inspection live and see all the numbers. It's a hard conversation or to be fair, it's actually a good conversation to have even when they do see maybe low numbers or high numbers, right? Because they're already attested to it, like they know that it's there.
The reality is real, and then the conversation is more meaningful because the vendor is informed. And I think that's where I see the collaboration start to play its role rather than the shift of agent and vendor, which can, I think some owners, they do struggle to trust. Our industry isn't as trusted as I would like it to be. So taking that away and giving people that transparency, I think is a great step to show who we are at Jealous Craig. But it's an absolute win for the customer. And I think it also does one other thing for us, which is one thing I used to always say to the customers I was trying to engage with to sell homes, I can't show you how good I am at this until you give me the opportunity, right? But Jealous Craig Live now brings that into the living room where they can see how much work we actually do around taking notes, asking leading questions, following people up from open homes, following them up not just once but twice but 3 times to make sure that we're doing the hustle to give the vendors and every chance to get that buyer back and re-engaged in the property. And with that, everyone then knows that they are working towards the one common goal, which is to get the best possible outcome.
Yes, and we're on their side. I think that's a misconception that people have as well, is like we're just trying to get it sold as quickly as possible. And I don't think that's the case whatsoever. Like we're on the vendor's side to try to get them the best price. And that's why our organisation, our group, has invented this to make it an industry first, to help with that transparency. So it's a massive accomplishment for the group, I think. And it definitely makes us stand out in the crowd. When you're looking at your point of view from a consumer, you've recently sold a house in Sorrento, but with the Sorrento office. So congratulations on that. How was it working with the agent, and how was it coming from a consumer point of view? I'm sure you sold multiple properties of yours in the past, but how was that interaction?
Well, I haven't had as many homes as I would have liked to, Yash. So there hasn't been that many. But I think the nice thing for me going through a selling exercise is that I understand the process. So I could educate myself, and I took my own advice. I did my own market research.
That's hard sometimes, isn't it?
Well, it is, because I go through that exercise and it helps me to walk in the shoes of what our customers do every day. And I know in my own mind that I had a range of hope versus reality, right? And the only way I could determine what hope and reality were was to do my own research of what else was selling, what were buyers liking about other homes, how would they compare mine, and where did I think it could potentially land. And then I needed to check that with the agent, and I asked them for their opinion, and thankfully we were quite aligned. So that part was easy. That part was easy, and I was an easy customer.
You were an easy customer? Is that what they were saying?
Well, I was. And they will say that, they have to. But I think what I would talk to people about with experience now, I think that when you're a seller, you have to understand what your goals are in the transaction. So I had a property that I didn't want anymore. Now, I didn't not want it because I needed to sell it or the bank were at the door. I just had other purposes in life that I wanted to achieve. And I didn't want to keep paying the gardener, and I didn't want to have to visit there anymore. And there were just lifestyle things that were going to be better for me without it. But I didn't want to sell it at any cost. But my main objective was to be sold. So I think if owners can remember, the main goal is to sell. The second goal is to get the best price. But you can't put price ahead of the sale. So if you become a seller that says, I'm only going to sell if I get $2 million, and the market keep responding at 1.8, at 1.8, at 1.8, at 1.8, and you're 4 months down the track and you've had 3 offers of 1.8, then your goal of 2 million is no longer realistic. But your fundamental goal of being sold to do something else in life is not being achieved either. So I became quite clear that I wanted to sell the property. So I went into it with the clear motivation to be sold, and then I wanted to get the best possible price and to assess the market. And I found the Jealous Craig Live product incredible for me because I knew when the open homes were on that I could watch how they were performing and I could read the data and I could see the numbers. And when the agent said, okay, we've had someone who's looked for a second time, they're showing some interest. After 3 weeks in the market, I knew that, okay, we've probably got a live one here. We've tested the market enough. They're engaging in the most appropriate way. Let's see where these offers and the negotiation go. And because I had all the knowledge of that performance and all the knowledge of the data of the sales properties, as soon as we entered the space to negotiate the outcome, I had full confidence that that was the right decision to make.
Great. Yeah, perfect.
And I would encourage every vendor to follow that process.
Yeah, that's probably the best way of going about it ultimately. And that takes out as much emotion of the transaction as possible. It makes it a logical decision. And you want to try to make it a logical decision as much as you can, as much as it's hard for most vendors probably that live in their home, that want to sell it. You want to try to just look at it, that's your goal. Think of where you're going to go next as well, and think of that transition period.
There's so many things around cost, and I don't want to talk about, I think it's sometimes we can be a bit derogatory about how we talk about money. You know, it's only 20 grand or it's only 50 grand. It's a lot of money in terms of these transactions. But if you have an offer of $500,000 on an apartment that's been an investment property for you that you no longer want to own, you've got body corporate fees, you've got rates, you've got lack of rent. Every month there's an opportunity cost to not be sold. So sometimes when people anchor to price, they're actually not assessing what that money could do for them if they did show some flexibility to achieve their main goal, which is to sell, to then move on and do the next chapter in life. I always believe that owners remember less the sale price and more the experience. So for Jealous Craig, you know, if we give great customer service through the process, the price is market determined, it's not agent determined. Our service and the way that we represent ourselves and our values, those things are memorable and can be judged, but we don't control the levers on price as much as people think. We just can deliver the market for a vendor to make a decision on as a judgment.
Yes, absolutely. We're the middleman at the end of the day, aren't we? But we do our best. One last question for you, Andy. I do appreciate your time. Where do you see the market going in Melbourne moving forward? It might be a tough question, open-ended question as well, but I'm sure you speak to a lot of industry experts as well in your position as CEO. Where do you see the market travelling for Melbourne?
Well, I think, again, we should all be able to answer that question. You will have an answer that I think is probably similar to my own. I think the market in Melbourne is starting to show good signs of recovery for good reason. I think that we're incredibly good value compared to the other capital cities in Australia. And whilst we had to endure the worst of the lockdowns of COVID, and we've got, you know, probably a state government system at the moment that's not in as good financial shape as some of the other state governments in the country, we are one of the most livable cities in the world. And we have a housing shortage, we have migration in the positive and people that want to live here. We have a lifestyle that is incredible as a commodity, and I think that, you know, we will continue to become a multicultural destination. I think that Australia in itself has a lot to offer the rest of the world from that point of view. Safety, security, island lifestyle, albeit big island. But I think that in the short term, the market is always governed by available credit, and interest rates coming down will definitely spur the market. And we're already seeing those signs this year. You'll be seeing it at your own open homes and auctions. When people feel more comfortable about their borrowing capacity, they tend to dig a little bit deeper into their pocket. And whilst rates might come down, that will shift what people's borrowing capacity was. If they had 850 approved, they'll probably become a $900,000 buyer now. And most buyers, truthfully, will want to spend all of that $900,000 if they can, because it will buy them a better house and a better asset. So in doing that, that puts pressure on price and it will give the market some recovery. But I think when you look for the longer term of what we have on offer here, again, people think short term, they make short term decisions. If you're worried about the market today, you'll never make the right decision for you.
True.
If you're thinking long term about what is it that I'm investing in, well, I think you walk through here in Brunswick today, you know, a lot of the development for Brunswick has happened, and therefore there's not lots of apartment buildings and there's not lots of planning here. If you want to buy in this location, it's pretty much set now. They're not releasing any more land, and therefore with such great lifestyle and amenity for here and access to the city, there's only one way for this place to go, which is to continue to go up. So I think that if, you know, people always ask me, when's the right time to buy? My answer hasn't changed for the last 5 years. The right time to buy is when you can afford to. And if you can afford to, you shouldn't worry so much about the market conditions. You just should have a very long view around what it is that you're buying for.
Absolutely.
Because property will and always has been one of the best asset classes in this country.
Yes, absolutely. Very well said. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us. I think there was plenty of gold in there for potential homeowners that are looking to sell now or in the future, and there's probably none better to ask than yourself, so thank you for your time. If you got value from today's episode, don't forget to subscribe to receive all of the insights, real world strategies, and tips and tricks that help you sell smarter and move forward with confidence. If you'd like more support, feel free to check out the link in the show notes below to get more free resources and tips and tricks that can help you move forward as well. If you'd like more support, feel free to click the link below and book in a call with myself. I'm more than happy to help with any tailored strategies for yourself and your family's specific situation. And if you'd like to find me on socials, my handle is Yash Akpana on most platforms, where I also provide more insights and real world strategies. See you next time.